My work is part of the ongoing research that I have done many years ago. Sorry, I will try to be short. I think a lot of people here want to hear more on Sarat talk.
This is your event.
Yes, so this is an ongoing research I have done through many years through my PhD research. And though it's a bit departed from the, thank you very much, from the early work that I have done before. Because I have been research on the urban conditions of contemporary urban conditions that have been changing through the transformation of sexual cultures in Asia, and that I think is allow us to rethink many boundaries and in different aspects. And I have been looking into many in-between spaces, so-called in-between spaces, and in many different ways, whether it's geographically or mentally or sexually or politically. And I think a lot of, I'm not going to talk a lot on my PhD research here because I think you can look through a bit in my website. Just going to focus on some of the continuation between my PhD research and the research I'm continuing to do after that. And previously I used the term lakapit, lakapet. I borrow from the Thai terms. It means sometimes closed, sometimes open. I use the term because I think it's more a productive term for me to look into the kind of cultural space that I'm trying to explore. And I think it's less of the binary connotations that's come with it. It's not like overly to with other terms in the Western. And I use it as a kind of to questions the binary opposition that have been so dominated in the Western thinking. And if you see it in my previous work, I have been quite interested in trying to capture and discovering the many kind of in-between spaces. Through the research here, I'm looking into 3 different levels of space, and one is the city of Bangkok, and also the bodies of the transvestite, the boxer. I don't know if a few years ago in Thailand we have like a very famous transvestite boxers, and so I'm looking to the bodies as a kind of space, and also the third one is female representations, and actually I try to look into try to find the spaces that have the qualities of the in-betweenness that I like just wanted to look into those in-between space, like I'm looking through like a magnifying glass, that when you look into it you can see many different power relationships that interplay within this kind of space, and where the space that and where's the exceptionalities or abnormalities or ambiguities or as well as the creativities can take in place, like I'm using a lot of Foucault's notions of the other space. So so that's the work I have been doing and up until the moment. And for the work here is a continuing series of the work called Live to Remain. Show some of it here. I have done 2 previous work. I use the terms live to remain because as that was my conditions of being in England, and every time that I'm going in or out of England, they're going to stamp on my passport that live to remain until. So I just want to use that term because it's kind of permissions to enter into someone else's house, or as well as the permission to leave the space as well. So I want to explore the conditions of that permissions that are how you can constructing the the home while you entering by these conditions. And there's of the two of the previous work I have done is called Feel Like Home, and this is a series of photographies, photographs. In this work, I'm just trying to capture both the physical and the psychological space of being caught into this kind of in-betweenness, and it's the kind of the feelings that happen after the 9/11, when nobody is feel belonging to anywhere. And in a lot of this work that a lot of this work is trying to question the traditional notions of home, and you know, before we think of home like that, we have the happy families and the image of dad washing the car and mom doing the cooking and things like that. But when there's a presence of the other enter into the notion of home, I think it's kind of changing the traditional notions. And this I think this one is more related to the one that I'm doing at the present, because it's deal with the notion of diaspora as well. And the next one that I did is called Are You Local? It's probably you can see a bit here, but actually I planned to show it quite long, but there's a lot of problem with the technologies. The computer is broken, and I cannot play the previous work that I have done before. I probably have to see in the internet, through the internet. And in this one, I'm trying to question the notion of home through the figure of a Thai transvestite who just married to a British guy and living in a council flat in London. And actually this also associated with my earlier work on a documentary about homosexualities in Bangkok. And the first one is a documentary. The first one is a documentary. So this one, I just want to go back to the same mediums that I was used to, I was using before. And so this one is more documentaries as well as the performance, because he's also an actor as well. And in this work, I'm sorry that you cannot see the better image, because she keeps going talking in English and Thai, and in two different roles that she thinks she have while she's in England. So this kind of two previous work in this series called Live to Remain, and after that, after my PhD research, I kind of embarking on the same route, but concentrate more on the notion of immigration or the notion of migrations. And so the work is quite perfect for me to continue on that, because before I came here, I did also the work with the Burmese immigrants because in Thailand, the issues of immigrations, the issue of migration is not that quite a big issues like in Europe here, because here it's like more like a major political issues here. But in Thailand, we just realized this like a few years ago. So, actually, we have been receiving countries for many years because through the wars in Vietnam and many other places in the neighboring countries. And but I don't know, it's just ignorance or something. But this few years, there's a large number of Burmese immigrants entering into Thailand since 1995, and even more so in these last few years. And in this new project that I was started before I came here, I was looking into the city called Samut Sakhon. It's about 200 kilometers from west of Bangkok. It's not very far, but it's, the whole town is full of Burmese immigrants that for some people it's known as a little Myanmar, because a lot of Burmese immigrants, the population is exceeding the local population there. So now become a big issue that the locals fear that the Burmese will taking over the cities, because we have this long history between Thailand and Burma, because we never lost or become colonized in any ways. But during the long history of Thailand, we have been lost twice to Burma. So that's quite a big thing between Thai and Burma. So so this new surge of a lot of Burmese immigrants into Thailand is quite alarming at the moment. So and the city of Samut Sakhon is not quite far from Bangkok, but at the same time, it's not a lot of people realize that the city now is full of illegal immigrants. I think a lot more illegals there, because like we have these last few years, we have the law that these foreign migrants have to register, but the number that can be registered is so small that I think there's a lot more of the illegal immigrants working in that town. And because that town is also dependent upon a fishery industry, and this kind of job is not a lot of Thai people are willing to do it at the moment, because it's taking a long hours, and the smell and the dirtiness and everything. So now it's like Burmese is taking over that job in that cities. And actually I have the edited version of the video they have done there. But like I said before, I'm so sorry that I cannot show the full version, so I just have to show some of the raw footage that I shot there. Probably is looking a bit documentary, but that's not the final presentation of the work. So largely it is like the work in progress, I have to let you know. And yes. Might be some sound there, but not a lot of copies. I'm just gonna show some images here. What I'm interested in these communities of transnational laborers is that the notion of home is always in the state of becoming. It's not like being in the home, but it's always in the state of becoming. Because for many people here, there's no past to going back to, because the Burmese government that in 1998 the military just taking over the government, and since then has been ruthlessly governed the countries, and there's a lot of going on, a lot of wars going on there between the militaries of the government and also the armed group of for the Sarat group of minorities there. So, and actually these Burmese minorities in their countries, like the Karen, it's a lot of minorities there. And so, you know, it's quite fascinating how they're constructing the home in, I can't show a different part of it because it's in different texts. In most of the time, there's the home for these people, like you have to share is between 3 families in one room. And in this case, probably they're a bit lucky. They have like a small room for each family. And it's just always in the present tense. It's not like I said before. There's no past for these people to going back to their country, or the past is so painful that they don't want to talk about it, or they just want to forget about it. And a lot of them, there are no future as well, because they cannot going back, and some of them are stuck there for the illegal status there. So the home is always in the state of the present tense. The present tense they seem like a forever. So forever is always in the becoming steps. And in that idea that I kind of take into this new work that I have done here in Utrecht. If you see that edited version, probably you see that although that in the present that it's more of the traditionals that they carried to the present one. So it's the note to the home. There's kind of different layers of meaning of different places and different times, like Maria said, that for the works here, when I started to, this one is still, I'm still continuing doing the research there, and but at the same time, it's coincident with this residency. So when I started to research on the issues of immigrants in the Netherlands, what I found very intriguing the most is the way that the mental psyche, the mental psyche of these immigrants have enormous impact for the issues here, because like in Thailand it's not so much of the issue, because you know we are close in the neighboring countries, so the culture is not much different. But for a lot of immigrants here, the problem is always focused on the mental illness or the schizophrenia. Actually, there's a lot of research on that. If you see the words immigrants, it's always come together with schizophrenia. And actually, there's a few countries that have this kind of problems, really high rate of schizophrenic symptoms, like England as well, and also in Sweden. And but the majorities of the problem is quite central in the Netherlands. And so there's a lot of research have been done on that subject. So I'm quite interested in to do more research on that as a way to understand more of the mental space and how they're constructing the home through the conditions of schizophrenia. But when I first arrived here, is the situations and what I proposed before is not quite go according to plan. Actually, it's still not much far away from it, because we always think of schizophrenic people as very scary, very extremes in their behavior. But actually, in realities, is not much difference that between the normal people and the schizophrenic people, because in this mental experience they're having, is not really out of the reach of the normal people can have. But we always deny the similarities between us and those who have schizophrenic symptoms. And I think that's kind of the same as that we always deny the similarities we have with those fallen or those with the others or different from us. So I think it's still doing have impact a lot on the issue of immigrations here. But like I said before, when I first arrived here, I'm quite surprised. I have to say, I'm quite surprised because I don't see much of non-white people, to be honest, walking in the streets. Because I know it later that because in Utrecht they have very little, no, not little. I mean, they have a small population of non-white people here. So probably it's not surprising that walking through on the street on the first few days that find difficult to locate the subjects or trying to do that kind of subjects here. But so one of my main priorities here is trying to locate the invisible subjects. So trying to get into the invisible layers, at least try to find immigrants here, at least. So I went through the whole networks of non-governmental organizations. I think the name is really telling itself because non-governmental organization that we are not on the same side as the governments. We are the opposite sides. And I think it's between these two that kind of create a kind of in-between space for the immigrants. Because there's always two different forces that in somewhere in the middle that's kind of become the in-between space that for the other can recreate their home. And I have to say that at first I felt like half of the city of Utrecht working for NGOs because there are so many of them, and there are so many of them. I thought like, oh my God, probably half of the country working for NGOs, and so I just start from one I got the recommendations from my friends in Thailand who works in NGO. So I just there's going to be a lot of names. I hope I'm going to do the map in the futures that of all this connection, all these networks of the NGOs here. But probably it's not enough time for me now because it's been very short time here. And the first one I went is going to give you some names to let you know that there are a lot of them here. And each of them working on different issues of immigrations that none of them quite overlaps really. And the first one I went is STV, is short for stitching. Probably I'm not going to try that. In English, the Foundation Against Trafficking in Women. Because at first, this trafficking in women is quite visible issues here. It's unlike immigration that you don't know where to start. So just starting from that place, but actually I didn't find it. I couldn't find it in Utrecht. I tried to find it a few days, but I don't know what happened with the address, the wrong one or something. So I went to another whole set of NGOs, starting with Faros. It's an organization that's just like 2 streets behind back, but probably nobody knows about it. And that taking care of the health care for refugees and asylum seekers. And after that, there's also that I went to SIW, International Volunteer Projects. That's what they call, because they organize a lot of volunteer projects, and among those projects, to work in the refugee centers to organize the activities for the children there, because And actually, I would have a better access going through that route. But unfortunately, the time of the project is in July, is that during the time that the schools terms close, right? Yes. Actually, the two refugee centers that they're doing at the moment is one in Viersum. It's still in Utrecht, in the southwest of Utrecht, right? Yes. And the other one's in Bergum. Yes. Yes. And that's one in the north of the Netherlands. And unfortunately, so I couldn't go into those two. But I got a lot of information through that organization that was suggesting me to go to restaurants here that allowed illegal immigrants to work on some of the days and give all the profits to those illegal immigrants. And one is called ECHO. ECHO is working with Jewish immigrants. And the other one is called RIR. Yes, RIR. Yes, and I tried to locate them as well. And I went to the ECHO first, and they kind of stopped doing that. I'm not sure of the reason. Then I went to the one that is called Everest Cafe, and that one, when I went there, they just stopped doing it for a while because on the 17th of April, the police was raided there, and 3 of the illegal immigrants were arrested and put into prisons. And so they have to stop doing that because they wasn't sure of the policies, because before that they thought, I'm sorry, I don't know what you're watching now. They stop it. Yes. Okay, and where was I? Yes, and when I went there, and that's because they wasn't sure of the policies, because before they thought they were doing things right, because they got the money from Utrecht Council to do this kind of work, and then they thought that they might be protected from the police because they got the money from the cities, but then so now they wasn't sure at all, because they told me that it wasn't illegal to help the illegal immigrants. It's illegal to be illegal immigrants, but it's not illegal to help illegal immigrants. So, I wasn't sure. But the Everest Cafe, they cooperate with another organization who deals directly with illegal immigrants. You imagine that, what the NGO dealing with all the illegal immigrants. And so I went there, and they're just about to have a 10 years anniversary parties. That's how long they have been doing, helping the illegal immigrants. So I was invited there. So that's where I try to discover the underground networks. Because at the parties, there's a lot of volunteers that allow illegal immigrants to hiding in their home, to hiding in their place, and also a lot of other NGOs who are also dealing with the same issues, and also some of the illegal immigrants who are also at the parties. Also, I just told Sarat before that one of the immigrants there just told me a lot about how New York used to be called New Amsterdam, and how the name is the same in Brooklyn in New York, and also Harlem. That's actually, I was taught that from the one of the illegal immigrants there. It's quite fascinating. And they said they're gonna allow me to film some of those, because during the process of researching, I also developed a project that is going to be called the Memory of the Last Supper. because by continuing on the notion of home, and so I was, I know that a lot of these immigrants would be a lot harder to talk about their past home, because a lot of them has been through quite a traumatic experience. So it's through the memory of the last supper at homes, I just hope that I can understand how their homes in the present and how their home in the past could be reconnected. So I just developed this project and hope to interview some of those immigrants that in connection with the still organizations on the subject. But that's still going on now. They still haven't connected me with a person yet. But after that, I went to another organization. It's called Volunteering Work. Yes, and continue with Midden Netherlands. So that's Midden Netherlands. Yeah. So that's the organizations that look after the interests of all the refugees and asylum seekers in the refugee center in the Middle England. So through that organization, I saw the whole networks of the refugee centers in the middle of the Netherlands. And so I went to some of them, like the one in Utrecht is probably like 10 minutes by bus from the center. It's not very far at all, and it's just like mixing with all the other houses. And I think that place, I think they have quite a tight securities there, because it's quite possible to get in. And I tried the authorities, and that's gonna take forever, and they never reply me since then. And so I went to a few of them, and at one in Amersfoort. Through the research, I also found out that there's a lot of immigrants from Burma who's through the projects, the resettlement program of the United Nations High Commissioners for Refugees, or it's called UNHCR, that through this program that they help a lot of countries that's also in turmoil to have to send the refugees to another countries. Now in like Burma, so that in Thailand, they do the resettlement to the other countries. And so a lot of Burmese that came through this program all stay in Amersfoort. And a lot of residents in Amersfoort is from through this program. And I try to contact the authorities. I don't know if you bore of this journey. Okay, let's continue. When I try to contact the authorities, and it's also impossible to film them, because like Maria mentioned before, that they're changing a lot of the policies since the murder of Theo Van Gogh. And since then, it's been changing all the time, that nobody knows exactly, even the NGOs, that what is the policies at the moment, and they're quite sensitive, and the outsiders still look into these issues also in these refugee centers. But I don't know, probably as a bit Dutch, I guess, that they said it's okay for me to film or to do interview as long as I know somebody there. So luckily when I went there, I saw some of the Burmese, and they speak Thai, because most of them has been in the camp in Thailand, and a lot of them raising their kids there like probably 10 years in the camp. So many of them can speak Thai. So actually at first I approached them speaking English. They said that probably it's better for me to speak to them in Thai. So this was I was invited by some of the Burmese there to go into their home, because the authority said that I could film in their home or in their rooms, but not outside. not in the public space of the corridors or thing like that, because they would consider that that they have to write to someone to get the permission to do that. The new work that I'm trying to develop, both of the photographies as well as the film that I try to interview some of them, and I got some of the footage here that probably you can see. The story is in, I have to translate it. It's not edit or subtitle or anything yet. Actually, I was asking about the memory of the Last Supper, and he was saying that his Last Supper was in the deep forest of Burma when he tried to escape from the armed group minorities there, and so he tried to escape from that because he has a lot of conflict with those army of minorities there. So he has to escape, and he was saying that he was coming with those with all the buffaloes and cows that they wanted to sell at the borders of Thailand. So there was he was trying to be one of those people who look after those castles. So he said that so his last memory was something that he found in the forest and to have for his dinners. And actually doing a lot of interviews with some other people, the notion of home is quite confusing, because for these people, like I said, that they wasn't sure where exactly are their homes, because some of them probably have been in Thailand for all their life, through life in refugees camp. And so when they ask me about home, so they kind of confused, where is exactly their home. So it's kind of a continuation of my work in Thailand, that for these people there's also there's no past, and also there's wasn't sure about the future, but also always in the moment of the present tense, always in the moment of becoming as well. So probably I go back to this. Sorry. Actually, I interviews you have to imagine this as unfinished work, because it's all going to be into different things together at the final piece. And here's the images that I took there for the immigrants. I'm just going to go through this and talk a bit later. These are some of the photographs I actually did just before last week. it's like it's like it's not a documentary pictures, and also it's not a performance exactly, and it's almost like a movie images, and also it's still images, so it's kind of in between of those things. And I want to capture all the feelings of anxieties and also the desire, and how they caught in between this past and the futures, and stuck in the moment of the present. And because one thing that I want to question is that when we look into this kind of images of immigrants, we always wanted to connect it to their past, or at least to their futures. We want to compare them. But like I said, we always forget the moment of the present that probably seem longer than the past or the futures. And because of a comparison between the past and the future and the present, that we cannot see the positive sides of the moment of the in-betweenness, or the moment of becoming, that could be more a positive thing than the old notions of that you sorry, this yes, okay, sorry. There was yes, and some of these, like I said, there's a lot of minorities in Burma. Some of Korean, and you saw some one of the Iraqis as well. That is incredible journey that she's been through. Because now actually she considered Thailand as her home, because she's been escaping from from Saddam Hussein regimes through Iran. And from Iran, she came with some families to Thailand, and then that families abandoned her in Thailand, and she's been stuck in Thailand for 5 or 6 years. And then she worked in the NGO, one of the NGOs organizations in Thailand, and then she considered Thailand as her home, and then she wanted to go back one day and not to Iraq. And all these kind of stories, when you ask me about these questions, it's like they're constructing the new notions of home. There's many layers of places and towns and meanings intervene at the same time. It's not like in the same notion that we used to know before. So I just want to capture it at that moment of becoming of these people. And actually, and also this one Nepali girl that she also escaped from the Maoist rebel in Nepal, and then came to Thailand, and then she's also been in Thailand for a few years. And actually, when I went into these places, and I was thinking of Foucault's notion of the other space again, because in one of his rules there, there's in the other space, that often you find the two extreme poles, one that can become a utopia. And I think this, the refugee centers in Amosport, where all the different nationalities be at the same place with harmonies, I think it reflects a lot of utopias cited that Foucault was talking about, that we cannot find in other real spaces. While at the same time, there are also the refugee centers that, such as the one in Schiphol Airport. There's been a fire in 2005 where 11 people were killed there, and also one in Rotterdam Harbour. I don't know if you've heard about it. There's a kind of prison ship there that contains that housing a lot of refugees on board the ship, and where they cannot escape anywhere. And there are also the regulation is how many hours of the refugees can expose to the sun. Everything's been regulated that on that boat. And I think that's another kind of detention center that's also reflect what Foucault said with the other one, that it's reflect all what is going wrong in the societies. So I think if you're trying to looking into the positive sides of this becoming, probably you can find a lot of creativities in this space of the in-betweenness that I hope that through looking to the long enough into the presence that we can find a moment that we can find the creativities and the moment that we can enjoy being together with the difference. And so that's some of the works I have done here.